We welcome you back to America Talks Live. We need to remind you that you can join in our conversation at 1-877-NEWSMAX. That's 1-877-639-7629. As mentioned earlier, about an hour ago, the Senate voted to override President Obama's veto of a bill that would allow 9/11 families to sue Saudi Arabia. According to White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest, the president insists that national security is the driving force behind the veto. Let's listen.
But when it comes to the stakes and the impact that this could have on our national security, the president's willing to take some political heat in order to try to do the right thing and stand up for a principle that has an impact on the safety and security and risk that's faced by our service members and diplomats around the world.
All right, that's Josh Earnest's story. He's sticking to it, but does it really apply? Let's discuss it, and to do so incisively, where a discussion becomes a discussion, we welcome in Nancy Brinker, host of Conversations with Nancy Brinker, which you see right here on Newsmax TV. She, of course, also the former ambassador from the United States to the Republic of Hungary, and a guy who's hungry for all the scoop politically, the managing editor of the Shark Tank political blog, Javier Manjarres. Thanks for being here. Ambassador, let's start with you.
Thank you.
Because the White House is saying the community of nations, our national security, the president had to veto this bill. Did you agree?
I think that, well, let me say this. It isn't, I happen to think that it is very difficult for individuals to take on sovereign nations, and particularly in this case, Saudi Arabia. I do think that it should be nation to nation. However, I question whether this particular White House would be strong enough in taking on a suit like that, and I think the citizens should hold any White House accountable for doing just that, and any nation accountable. But I mean, there's strength in numbers. There really is.
I don't know what he means by affecting U.S. foreign policy or national security, because he doesn't have a leg to stand on when it comes to foreign policy, considering all the failures throughout his 8 years in office. I mean, I can run down the list, but we all know what they are. But so I don't see this going anywhere for him.
Well, something else very interesting about it is the fact that we have callers lined up to talk about it at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629, to Staten Island, New York, for James. James, welcome to the program.
Hello.
Hi, James. Go right ahead, sir.
Well, the one thing that we have to remember, we should definitely not let the people sue Saudi Arabia first. They should actually be thinking about suing the Bushes or the people directly responsible for what happened. And we waited for so long for things like this to come out, and they act like they don't understand why Obama.
So let me just, I want to drill down to understand, when you're saying the Bushes, are you saying that 9/11 was an American conspiracy, James?
Listen, I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Are you saying that our nation is responsible for 9/11, or our foreign policy was responsible for it?
If you are trying to place blame for what happened on 9/11, you realize that planes didn't bring down those buildings, right?
Thank you, James. We appreciate the conspiracy theory. It makes me want to puke to have calls like that come in when people try to say that foreign agents were not responsible for 9/11. I understand that some human minds cannot begin to try to get around the notion of the brutality. I also understand partisanship, but this repeated, sick notion that somehow those serving in the American government engineered this. I was part of that American government, serving in the House of Representatives. And what you had to say again makes me want to puke. You've got a right to your opinion, but not to your own facts. And rewriting history in this way is patently ridiculous. One of the more diplomatic things I can say. Thanks for the phone call. Your take.
I absolutely agree with you. I mean, this conspiracy theory and all this, that somehow there was something in our government conspiring to do this, is ridiculous. I, too, was I was leaving for Hungary on the day of 9/11. and became full on in service at that time. And having known the Bushes for as many years as I have, and the very people who were trying desperately to lead our government in the right direction, it also makes me furious about all of that. And then when I got engaged with the armed services when I was in Hungary, because of course they swarmed everywhere and everyone was trying desperately to figure out how this happened, where it happened, when it happened, it really makes me mad. It makes me cringe when I hear that.
And let's just state for the record, I'm not carrying a brief for the Bushes. Goodness knows I have my political disagreements with them. But that day in service, let me tell you what, pal, there wasn't some sort of grand government conspiracy.
No, look, at the end of the day, George W. Bush kept us safe.
Right.
We can't say that for the past 8 years, and President Barack Obama. Again, this notion that the government was involved. I mean, even if it was someone who put out that conspiracy theory that President Obama brought down those tires, I mean, it's just ridiculous. We saw the planes hit. We saw what happened. We all did.
There must be something about the human mind when the subject is so difficult to comprehend that for some people it is natural to look at some sort of hidden hand, but it's not there. Now, let's go to politics.
Right.
We've done 9/11 and conspiracies. Let's go now to what's going on, although maybe someone will classify this as a conspiracy. The Bush alumni, including former Bush 41 Chief of Staff John Sununu, who at one point had some rather uncomplimentary things to say about Donald Trump. En masse, about 50 Bush alumni, 41 and 43, say, hey, you know what? We're now on the Trump train. Your response to that, Ambassador, and are you now on the Trump train?
I knew you would corner me. I knew that. Let me say this. I am very much on the train of keeping our party, and making sure, you know, one thing Donald Trump has done.
Answer?
Well, it's both.
Okay.
It's both. Because one thing I want to see is I want to see our nominee study next time we do the debate, have answers and have the right responses in these kinds of debates. Because you know what most citizens were hungry for when I kept hearing all the talk afterwards? They wanted to hear about the issues. People really want to know. It tells them, who are you as a person? And I thought that debate was it was the same two people going at each other.
But again, the question becomes, is it really, because if you don't support the Republican nominee, the notion is, well, we're going to stay principled in defeat to the Washington establishment to maintain some order, be good sports and losers, and maybe hang on to try and stalemate things in the House and Senate. Are you still not ready to endorse the Republican nominee?
I have said all the way from the beginning, I would prefer to be for our nominee. I want to hear more. I want to see more. I want to make sure that the responses are right. I think that Donald Trump has brought a lot to this party, whereas a lot of people don't. I think he has brought a whole new group of people into the Republican Party. And by the way, it will never be the same party again. And we have to find ways to make them feel comfortable. We have to make whatever peace we need to make them a part of a new movement that Donald was smart enough to finger at the very beginning of this. He was the one person who brought on change.
I guess we're going to have to wait for a yes or no, but you do have the right to secret ballot, Ambassador. Final word to Javi on this, about a minute.
I think it's very simple. I support Donald Trump wholeheartedly. I think everyone should. After the debate performance of Hillary Clinton, within the first 10, 15 minutes, she outlined her agenda, which is President Obama's agenda. She's going to bring in President Obama's third term if elected president. So there shouldn't be any question after that performance.
1-877-Newsmax. That's 1-877-639-7629. We really do appreciate your calls, but sometimes they do elicit strong responses, not only from the host of the program, but from the panelists. So we do very much appreciate it. But Nancy, I just can't resist one more appeal. With Brother Sununu. I mean, John had some tough you still need to ponder.
No, I'm not pondering. I'm just I just want Donald to be the kind of candidate that, look, we're never going to get anyone in this election. It's going to probably be a close election, right or wrong. Do you think it's
I
going to
think
be a
it's
close
going. It
election?
can be very close.
Okay, well, that piece of the population that's going to make it not so close have to be convinced. Women have to be a little more convinced. People have to see a certain amount of judgment. And the other night, I was kind of disappointed. I wanted both of them to take their shots while they could. I thought there were 4 or 5 issues which Mr. Trump could have taken on.
I appreciate
and I really
that. I got
wanted
to utter a
that.
4-letter word. Time. We're out of it. Nancy, Javier, thanks. There's more to come, including your calls.